Hello guys, and welcome to another Stacey West video. This time we are going to be running down the best loan players to have played for Lincoln City in the EFL era. So we've done the worst loan players to play for Lincoln City in the EFL era. That was topped by Tashanoti Booth, Luke Plange, Dan and Lundaloo, a real rogues gallery. We've done the worst signings of the EFL era. Now that was very subjective. Jamie Robson taking the title, but there was some absolute stinkers on that list. So it's time to start looking at the positives. As Monty Python said, always look on the bright side of life. If you've got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Don't say anything at all, even. You say nothing at all. That's Ronan Keating, isn't it? I'm not Ronan Keating. My name is Gary Hutchinson, and I am going to take you through what I believe are the 10 best Lincoln City signings, loan signings of the EFL era. Now, remember, when we talk about the EFL era, we talk about 2017 onwards. When we dropped out of the Football League in 2011, it was the plain old Football League as it had been for a century or more. But when we came back, it was the EFL, the glitz, the glamour, the razzmatazz. And that's what we're looking at. So loan players from 2017 onwards. We're not looking at the National League. We're not looking at Steve Tilson, Keith Alexander, all of that. There are videos planned. But no, we are looking right now at everything from the summer that Michael Bostwick arrived permanently, Harry Anderson arrived permanently, but which loan players since then have made the biggest impact? You're in the right place to find out. So at number 10, I have gone for Mark OHara. Now, Mark OHara was a Scottish midfielder. He joined us in the winter transfer window of the 2018-19 season, coming in with the aim of helping us getting over the line and winning the title. So he had been at Dundee United. He'd had a really good time at Dundee, scored 9 goals in 60 games. Peterborough United then fished him out of Scotland, and he was going to be another one of those Peterborough United project players. He started so well at Peterborough. He scored 3 goals in his first 2 games, a 2-1 win against Bristol Rovers and a 4-1 win away at Rochdale. But then he began to drop down the pecking order a little bit. And in January 2019, he signed for Lincoln City. Now, he came in against the backdrop of us probably needing a central midfielder a little bit more than perhaps we realised we did at the time. So we've got Tom Pett. He was playing central midfield for us. Michael O'Connor, really good player, was an injury risk, but actually survived really well during that season. We had Lee Frecklington, who was in and out of the side. He'd been injured in the 6-2 win against Port Vale. He'd come back relatively quickly, but hadn't quite had the same impact. So we were looking to try and bring in a central midfielder. Michael Bostwick, by that point, remember, had already converted back to a centre-back. So he was playing at centre-back alongside Jason Shackle. We really needed that protection. We wanted a little bit of height, a little bit of dominance. And Mark OHara was the player that we identified to do that. So OHara came in and made his debut on January the 26th. We were away at Bury. You may remember the game. He was a late substitute in that game for Tom Pett. It ended up 3-3. He came on and it was actually 3-2. Will Aimson scored then for Bury, which was pretty challenging for us to take. I remember watching that game. I think it was live on Sky at my dad's house. But after that, Mark OHara became a real key part of what we were trying to do in terms of winning promotion. Absolutely cemented himself in the midfield area. He made 14 starts over the time. Probably his biggest moment was in the game against Yeovil. It was on a Friday night. We'd just beaten Forest Green away. However, we had a draw at Exeter. It was really crucial that we got something against Yeovil. And remember OHara, I think he got a header, if I remember correctly, on 69 minutes, which helped us beat them. And then a couple of days later, Paul Scholes brought his Oldham athletic team here. Harry Toffolo and Danny Rowe scored there. The man sent off on 43 minutes. Mark OHara played in that as well. He was pretty much ever present through to the end of the season. He started the final game of the season, the 3-0 defeat against Colchester United. But then after that, we didn't see anything more of him. In 2018-19 season, in the 2019-20 season, he went back to Peterborough, was loaned to Motherwell, and since 2022 has been part of the St Mirren side that has survived admirably in the SPFL. I think he's the 10th best loan signing we've made in the EFL era. At number 9, I have gone for a real live wire. It's the 2019-20 season, the one that was decimated by COVID, the one that looked really good until Dan and Nick left us and Michael Appleton came in. There was wholesale changes in that winter window as well. It was a really turbulent season for Lincoln City. But there was one player who stood out all season. There was one player who absolutely earned his corn. He was on loan at Lincoln City at the time from Bristol City, and his name was Joe Morrell. Now, when Joe Morrell first signed, I didn't see exactly where he fitted in. We'd still got Michael O'Connor. Jack Payne was a Lincoln City player, so we'd just signed Jack Payne. We got George Grant, who could play in the midfield. He arrived in that transfer window. Ellis Chapman was coming through. So there was all manner of different players that could play, and Joe Morrell just came in just as another foot soldier, or so it seemed. But he was really good for Lincoln. He played in that holding midfielder role, not actually unlike Joe Morrell. Maybe I have a type by the looks of things. And he was combative. And maybe at first we didn't need that particularly. Maybe at first, until we lost Dan and Nick, we probably didn't need as much of that fight. We were doing relatively well. Okay, we lost back-to-back games against MK Dons and Doncaster away, where probably we did lack a little bit of fight. But remember us beating Southend 4-0, Rotherham 2-0, Accrington 2-0, taking Everton a good way in the Cup. So he didn't stand out up until that point. Where he began to stand out was after that. He was called up for Wales while he played for Lincoln, played in the 2-0 win against Sunderland, which was Michael Appleton's first win, which was massive. He then played against Slovakia and Croatia, Azerbaijan and Hungary as a Wales player. Liked to pick up a booking. He got 11 bookings in 36 games for City. But in a season where there were so many shifting sands, where it was out with the old and in with the new, where Tom Pett, who had been a title winner the year before, was farmed out before the end of the season. John Akindi went, Bruno Andrade went. We brought in the likes of Connor Coventry. We brought in the likes of Callum Connolly. There was just so much changing. And the one thing we could grab on, the one constant that we could grab onto, or one of the constants, was this loan player from Bristol City. He was, I think, outstanding in that season. He clearly impressed people above us because he then got a move to Luton Town. But ever since then, injuries have really disrupted his career. Most recently, he was out for a season at Portsmouth and he's now a free agent. But I think that Joe did absolutely superb for Lincoln City. I think it's hugely underestimated how well he did in that season, given that the season was largely forgettable, not just because of what happened in terms of changing the manager, but also in terms of it being curtailed by COVID. We never got to give him his proper send-off. We never got to give him his inevitable Player of the Season award, which was a little bit of a shame. But he was a really good player, and he was the 9th best loan signing of the EFL era, in my opinion. It's the first of a couple of goalkeepers. Now, since we came back into the Football League, we have had a habit of loaning goalkeepers or bringing in short-term goalkeepers. Matt Gilks, short-term goalkeeper. Josh Griffiths, name escaped me there. Josh Griffiths, loan goalkeeper. We've done that. We've shifted now, obviously, recently with Lucas Jensen, and obviously this season George Wickens, into buying our own goalkeepers because we've had a really good record. I can't think of a bad goalkeeper that we've had going right away back until us coming into the EFL. I can't think of one goalkeeper who's been a regular who I haven't been impressed with. Sam Slocum was one who we signed on loan who I wasn't particularly impressed with, but everybody else, everybody that's played a league game, I have been impressed with. I was particularly impressed with number 8 on our list, which is Karl Rushworth. Now, Karl wasn't the biggest goalkeeper, but he was a phenomenal shot stopper. In 42 league games, he kept 19 clean sheets. Mark Kennedy's side of 22-23 was not creative. We didn't create opportunities. We were bottom 4 or 5 for XG, for shots. Without a solid backline, that team actually would have been in a lot more trouble than it was. But as it was, we had a really solid backline. We had Paudie O'Connor, we had Regan Poole, and in the middle, we had Karl Rushworth. Now, he was a great shot stopper. He commanded his area really well. The fact that he had had a great season with Walsall in League Two beforehand and went on to play 46 championship games for Swansea the season after underlines exactly how good this goalkeeper was. He was sent off against Port Vale. We still won that game 3-2. Crazy game. Remember it like it was yesterday. But I can't remember a blatant mistake that Rushworth had made. Every keeper makes a mistake in a season, so there will be one. But I just can't remember a mistake that he made. It's always hard, I think, for a young goalkeeper to win over a fan base when they first come in. But Karl Rushworth did that really, really quickly. How he only played 3 games for this season while on loan at Hull City, I have no idea, because Hull were in the bottom of the Championship, and they've got, in my opinion, one of the best goalkeepers that I've ever seen play for Lincoln City, sitting on the bench waiting to get a game. 19 clean sheets, 42 games. That's outstanding. Testament a little to the defence in front of him, but as a goalkeeper, you are the last line of defence, and Karl Rushworth was one that I absolutely always trusted. At number 7, I have gone for yet another goalkeeper. Yep, afraid so. It's Alex Palmer. Now, Alex Palmer is the highest ranking goalkeeper on this list. I think he's the best lone goalkeeper we've had, in my opinion. He was just about the best goalkeeper that we've ever had at Lincoln City, certainly in my lifetime. He was outstanding. His debut was superb. We played Oxford United. We won 2-0, if I remember correctly. But he was outstanding. He was brilliant that day, pulling off several saves. The run pre-Christmas that took us to within... We should have gone up that season. We had a little bit of a collapse with injuries to the likes of George Grant and Liam Bridcut and Tom Hopper later in the season. But the run that took us through up till Christmas was built upon not just the creative players, but on having a solid defence. He kept 19 clean sheets as well in that season. So remember that he played 48 games. The only game he didn't play was the playoff semi-final, where we had to loan in Joe Bursic because Palmer was injured. So 48 games, longevity. There was no red cards in there, which probably is why I just nudge him up a little bit higher than Rushworth. I think he commanded his area superbly. I think he was an excellent shot stopper. There were 1 or 2 errors. There was one in a night game, I seem to think, against one of the struggling sides, Swindon, I think it was, where he made an error that cost us a goal. Every goalkeeper makes us an error, but I think a lot of our playoff season, people talk about Morgan Rogers and Brennan Johnson and George Grant and how the injuries to the likes of Liam Bridcut hit us, and how Harry Anderson was excellent that year, Conor McGrandles was excellent that year, TJ Ioma had a breakout year, Theo Eden had a breakout year. It was a good side. But it was all built on that bedrock of Alex Palmer. And I think he's gone on to prove that he's a top goalkeeper, making 14 appearances for Ipswich Town in the Premier League this season. That's not to be sniffed at, and it was a pleasure to see him. And there were other loans that came in that season that overshadow him, and people talk about those loans and will talk about those loans, as you will probably expect. But it would be remiss not to just point out the impact that Palmer had in getting us through to the League One playoff final. Now, I know this one is going to be controversial because we're talking about a player who scored in the Champions League, who got 14 goals for Premier League Aston Villa this season, who's represented England, who moved for 8 million, rising to 15 million. But 6th on my list, 6th, is Morgan Rogers. Now, Morgan Rogers was always going to appear on this list. He was a superb loan signing that Michael Appleton Jez secured for us. He was technically a gifted footballer, but when he came to us, he was a little bit younger and he was a little bit raw. Bear in mind that he's still only 22 now. I think he was, 17, 18 when he came to us. So he was a really raw young player. He had 7 goal involvements. 6 goals and an actual goal. Of those games, I think 3 of his goals earned as a draw, 1 of us earned as a win, which was a win away at Ipswich. You have to remember that he did occasionally drift in and out, and we did find it difficult to find a way to be able to play with him and Brennan Johnson at the same time. These are things that the sands of time have slowly obscured, because people go, well, we had Brennan Johnson and Morgan Rogers, and look at what they've gone on to do now. They must have been brilliant together. They weren't actually brilliant together. They were in the 4-0 win against MK Dons, but at times we found it difficult to accommodate both of them, especially when George Grant was injured and Liam Bridcut was injured, because we were then lacking a little bit of experience, particularly when Bridcut was injured, in order to kind of anchor. So they're the negatives. That's the reason why he's 6th and not number 1. The reason why he's on the list, though, is because he was an outstanding talent. He still came in. He still scored goals for us. It was quite difficult, actually, because if you think about those players being injured, I mean, there was Joe Walsh and Adam Jackson were in and out of the side. There was Liam Bridcut out for a spell. Tom Hopper out for a spell. George Grant out for a spell. Callum Morton had been injured most of the season and only came back. We were suffering badly with injuries that campaign. So it was a tough time. We'd been quite well up in the league and we began to tumble down the league a little bit. So it was hard for Morgan Rogers to come in and actually put a real stamp on it. If he'd come into a team that was already settled with no injuries and he was the luxury player we could drift in and out, I think he would have had a much, much bigger impact. But he was still young, he was still learning, and we still saw glimpses of his exquisite talent. I think he's the sixth best loan signing of the EFL era, and I know there will be people who disagree and think that he should be higher. But he's not. Now, this is where people are going to fall out with me, but in fifth, I have picked Shay McCarten. And before you start screaming about how can you put McCarten over Morgan Rogers, I am going to explain how. Two very different sides. Danny Cowley's side, which was expected to be challenging for the title and carried that through. Michael Appleton's side at the time was already up there, and we were looking to pepper with a little bit of ability. Morgan Rogers shone bright briefly. Shay McCarten was the functional element of a title-winning team, and he played a lot more games whilst on loan. Played 38 of our League Two games, scoring 7 times, 43 games in total. He scored some absolute bangers. Certainly, I remember the one against Swindon, I think it was, which was just an outrageous volley on the angle. It was one of the best goals I've ever seen, scored by full Lincoln City. Superb. He got a landmark goal away at Crawley as well in the 3-0 win. I think the thing with Shay is he was signed, there was a degree of expectation. He came from Bradford. When he moved to Bradford, it was believed that he had cost them something like £200,000 from Accrington Stanley. He hadn't really thrived there, a toxic changing room, I think he spoke of before he came to us. So he came to us with not baggage, but a little bit of weight on his shoulders. He was a functional part of that team. He never looked like a lone player. You never felt he was a lone player. You would be forgiven for thinking that he was just part of the side. There was nothing. There was no talk of him wanting to go back to Bradford. There was no talk about would they recall him. That I recall, it was just he was a key part of that team. We won a League Two title. It's really easy to say things like, well, we should have done because we had a decent budget. We did. We had a top 4 budget that season, but we finished first. We did what we had to do with a functional side. We made the right key signings. I've already talked about OHara, who came in at this point of the season, in this season rather, at a later point and helped get us over the line. Shay McCarten was there at the coalface from the first game onwards. And for me, he was a great loan signing because he did exactly what you want the loan signing to do. Come in, be a first team player, score goals, 7 goals from kind of his advanced midfield roles, not to be sniffed at. And then he went on. He's actually also commanded an Irish League record fee, I believe, when he moved to Glentoran from Ballymena, and that was £100,000. So nice guy, talented guy. Liked to play Red Dead Redemption 2, if I recall correctly, when we first got him in. And for me, the 5th best loan signing of the EFL era. What makes a good loan player? Impact? Goals? Yeah, those I think. A little bit of flair. Loaning somebody in that you probably couldn't have afforded anyway. Yeah, I think those things make it. But what really makes a loan player is someone who gets it. Someone who connects with the supporters as if they're one of ours, as if they're a player that we have permanently. And that leads me to number 4 on the list. And I say last season, but not the season that's just gone, the season before. We loaned a central defender from Millwall called Alex Mitchell. And for me, Alex Mitchell got it. He was very much a Lincoln City man. He felt like he wanted to come here. I know that isn't how it worked out. He's a young man. He had an offer from us. He had a much bigger offer from Charlton. And actually, it's proven to be the right move. Perhaps not for his career, but certainly for promotion, because he's now a championship defender, whether he remains at Charlton or not. So there's no begrudging him not coming back here. But while he was here, he was well worth having. He was a warrior. His distribution improved immeasurably throughout the course of the campaign. You could see him playing in the middle of a 3 or on the right side of the 3. But he did just get it, and it was his demeanour on the pitch. It was him. I seem to remember him celebrating as winning a throw-in at one point. He was just a warrior, and he was just a monster. He was a nice guy, and he came from a nice family. And they all bought into Lincoln City massively, which was fantastic to see. But he was a great loan signing. How Millwall didn't think he was quality enough to play for them, I don't know. How he hasn't got into Charlton's team, I don't know. With Charlton, it's probably more success. They've had quite a bit of success this season. They've obviously found a settled back 4. I don't think it's a reflection on Mitchell's ability. But of these loan players, There are quite a few that we would stand no chance of getting back. The Europa League final scorers and stuff like that. But Alex Mitchell is one that we would stand a chance, I think, of getting back with the right kind of conditions. And I would absolutely 100% have him back again because he got it. He understood what it was to be a Lincoln City player. And images of him standing on a table in the Shakespeare with a red flare at the end of the season only cemented that. But it's what you do on the pitch that gets you on this list. And Alex Mitchell did everything that was needed on the pitch to become a successful loan player for Lincoln City. Number 3 on the list. Now, we've got 3 cracking players coming up here. 3 players whose spell in Lincoln City shirts brought them double-digit goal involvements. 3 players who, when they left, you would love them to have signed permanently. 2 who perhaps we might actually have seen signed permanently. 1 who we did. But 1 who we did not, who we would very much like to have seen signed permanently, is the 3rd player, the 3rd best loan player, I believe, of the EFL era, and that's Joe Taylor. Now, we struggled hugely at the start of the 23-24 season, with Jack Vale coming in, injured, Tyler Walker, injured, Ben House, injured. The only striker we really had was Jovan Makama, who, since we've seen, is far better out wide. We were really struggling. So in January, when we started making signings, one of them was Joe Taylor, on loan from Luton Town, who had previously been at Colchester United. Now, on paper, it looked like a great signing. Fred Draper came back. He had scored 10 goals in League Two as well. So we brought goals into the side. We brought Jack Moylan into the side. These were the players that were going to fire us up the table. But few could have predicted that they would fire us towards and indeed into the playoffs. On the final day of the season, we started 6th, and had we matched Oxford United and Barnsley's results, we would have gone through into the playoffs. But we did not. We lost to Portsmouth. But that little spell from Joe Taylor signing right the way through to the final game of the season, we were excellent. It was some of the most exciting stuff I think we'd seen at Lincoln City. The football was largely similar to this season. People may disagree with me. Other teams hadn't quite sussed what we were doing. We ground out some results as well. But Joe Taylor got himself among the goals. There was the fantastic month where we beat Cambridge United and we beat Barnsley and we beat Bristol Rovers, and Taylor was amongst the goals there. He actually scored 10 with 2 assists, and I think he got something like 6 in that little spell. So that's probably why I haven't put him a little bit higher, because his goals came in kind of quite short bursts, and it's easy to kind of say, he scored 10 goals that season. Yes, he did, but he got a hat-trick against Bristol Rovers, and he got 1 here and 2 here. It was all in quite a tight time when there was a lot of other players scoring as well. And we did kind of towards the end of his spell, I think there was once or twice where there was no space in behind, and there wasn't an opportunity for him to do what he did well. And we saw that when Huddersfield came to us earlier in the season. We knew how to stop Joe Taylor because we had Joe Taylor playing for us. But he was excellent when he came in on loan. He was a great signing. We brought 10 goals into the side. As I say, brought 2 assists into the side as well. I think he was instrumental in one of the really key wins of that season as well, which was away at Cheltenham at the end, and away at Carlisle. So they were 2 games where he really was key. The Carlisle game where we won 3-1, I think he got a goal and an assist. So he was the difference between a draw and a win. Great player, nice enough bloke, down to earth. We were priced out of a move for him, sadly, but he will be remembered by me currently as the 3rd best loan signing of the EFL era. Number two on my list is a player who is important to remember the positives as much as the negatives, because Tyler Walker has had a horrid time for us over the last 2 seasons. Indeed, since he left us in January 2020, he hasn't had the best of times. He's had injuries, a move to Coventry, which was a little bit hit and miss, poor spell at Portsmouth. His 2 years with us have just been horrible. 6 league appearances, I think, overall, over 2 years. Terrible spell. But it's hugely important to remember what Tyler Walker did for us in his first spell. So he'd been at Mansfield in League Two the season before, 26 goals in 50 games. We had been in for him that season. We hadn't got him. He did really well at Mansfield. We still won the title. So the next season he came to us. He played 29 league games in 2019-20 season, scored 14 goals. 16 across all competitions with 3 assists, 19 goal involvements by January in a team that started well, that then lost their manager, that then had the interim manager, a new man came in, all sorts of chopping and changing, and he still had 19 goal involvements. When we say Tyler Walker to a modern day Lincoln City fan, there's going to be the injury, there's going to be people making comments about legs of Weetabix, all that sort of rubbish. But it's hugely important, in my opinion, to remember what an outstanding loan spell he had. And at the time, he was a bright spark in what was a pretty tough season for Lincoln fans. Losing Danny Cowley was hard. Michael Appleton coming in, that 6-0 defeat against Oxford, and then the wholesale changes. It was difficult. Tyler being recalled was really, really hard to take as well. But, you remember those games. I think there was Sunderland. He scored away at Sunderland. It was a dismal, dismal day. He scored against Peterborough and we beat them 2-1. 2 goals and an assist in the 5-3 win against Ipswich at New Year. I mean, he was just electric. Both goals against Fleetwood. He got one, I think, against Southend was his first one from the penalty spot. He just rained goals. He rained goals, and he gave us something to cling to that we didn't previously have. When he left, when he was recalled, Forest even sent us Liam Bridcut almost to say sorry. I think they recalled him from Bolton and sent him to us, as if almost to say sorry. And we've had a good relationship really with Forest since. He was just a really good loan signing. I do feel for him now. I do feel for his reputation has probably taken a bit of a hit with Lincoln City fans. But for me, he's the second best loan signing of the EFL era. But of course, there can only be one winner, can't there? He may have won a Europa League for Spurs. He may have represented Wales at international level. But for me, Brennan Johnson's major achievement will always be what he did for us at Lincoln City, because I'm a Lincoln City fan. It's not his biggest achievement, obviously, but I wear red and white glasses. 13 goals, 5 assists, 18 goal involvements over the course of the season. Brennan Johnson had a phenomenal spell at City. I mean, when he first came in that game against Charlton, you could see how lively he was, how full of skill he was. He was still a young man, but he played with real confidence. Probably took a bit of a while to get going, actually. I think he'd only scored the once before December, and then he hit 4 in 2 games against Northampton when we won 4-0, Burton when we won 5-1, and after that he was just outstanding. He could drift in and out a little bit. Sometimes as a young man, we found it a little bit hard to find a position for him. He played attacking midfield. He played on the right. He played on the left. He even played centre forward in the EFL trophy against Sunderland. But also towards the end of the season, when we needed something to get over the line, he stood up and was counted. After we had lost 4-3 to Plymouth, remember that game? We'd lost 2-1 at home to Fleetwood. Really difficult. Crew came. We needed something big. Goal and assist, 3-0 win. And then we lost to Rochdale 2-1. We lost 3-0 to Gillingham. He went off to play for Wales, came back, got a goal in the 2-2 draw against Blackpool, got 3 against MK Dons to win 4-0, and an assist as we beat Bristol Rovers 1-0, goals that got us over the line. We talk about his goal involvements. How many penalties did he win? Bear in mind, he wasn't actually the one on penalty duty. George Grant was. So how many penalties could you pile onto that? Was he diving? Did he go down too easily? Potentially, potentially not. The point is, we got to the League One playoff final, which is the closest we have come to second-tier football since we dropped out of that level in 1961. And Brennan Johnson was one of our best players that season. He's gone on to prove that he's an outstanding young man. He's got a big, big career still ahead of him. He's just won a European trophy. Okay, he's with Spurs, one of the biggest clubs in the country. They may not have shown it this year, but they are. He's a hugely, hugely talented player. I think he's even taken some barracking at Spurs, which baffles me. He was a great signing. Mike Appleton had a good relationship with his dad. Shouldn't downplay that. Great piece of recruitment, but he gave us some phenomenal moments. And to be fair, that game against Sunderland, the 2-0 win, the last goal he scored for Lincoln, Tom Hopper got the first, Brennan got the second. But that return from COVID, it was just a magical, magical game. And he even scored at Wembley for us. So his last goal at Sinsel Bank, his final goal for us was obviously, I say it was obviously at Wembley. I think it was classed as an own goal, wasn't it? But it was made by Brennan Johnson at Wembley. He gave us a moment to cheer, a goal at Wembley in a playoff final. And for a while, I thought that was that. I thought we were going to the Championship, and I thought maybe we'll get him on loan again next season. As it was, we didn't. He's gone on to better things. But in my opinion, he's the best loan player that we have had in the EFL era, dare I argue, ever. Possibly. Thank you for watching. I've been Gary Hutchinson of the Stacey West. If you've enjoyed this, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. I'm assuming you're a Lincoln City fan. If you're not a Lincoln City fan and you do still subscribe, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I will be back with more videos, but keep an eye on the channel. We've put the podcast out on here. We put lots of shorts out on. We're also on Instagram. I believe we're on TikTok as well. We are everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. We're like white dog poo in Grimsby, not the Imps.